Hello and welcome back to the Arturia CMI-V tutorial series. In the last episode we had a look at the principles of sampling and we saw that we can actually turn a sample into a wavetable, and that's what we're going to have a look at today. Just before we set off on that, have a look at the Patreon link in the description below if you want to help support my channel. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. That's all that done, let's get on with it. So this is exactly as we left it in the last episode. We'd turned the bass synth sample out of the analog section sound into a wavetable. And we heard that there was very little difference between this and the original sample, but the way that the sound is being generated is fundamentally different. Now we're not replicating every moment of that sample in its purest form. It's been turned into an approximation, and it's done with these 32 wavetable entries. Now in the CMI, these are called harmonic envelopes. What we've basically got is 32 instances of a wave shape. In this case, you can see it's a sine wave being played back at different amplitudes over a period of time. So what you can see in this graph here is an amplitude curve. This sine wave is being played at different volumes over a period of time. And by doing that 32 times for all of the different harmonics of the sine wave, this is the first 32 harmonics of the harmonic series. When you add all that stuff together, you get something that very closely approximates the sound that you were trying to play in the first place. So it's important to remember that it is an approximation. These wavetables are generic constructs that are all being lumped together to make a sound, as if you're playing back the original sample, but you're not playing back the original sample. Now, in the vast majority of sounds you'll ever hear, the loudest of the harmonics is the fundamental. In other words, harmonic number 1. So if I really mess with the volume curve of this harmonic, you're going to hear what becomes a tremolo shape. I'm now really messing with this thing because I'm basically clicking randomly in the screen to add new points to this volume curve. You can also right click on any of the nodes to delete them, or left click to recreate them. So when I press this note now, you're going to hear a pulsing volume. I've only changed one of the 32 wavetables, but you will hear quite a dramatic change of sound. That's just the fundamental that's having that impact on the sound. If I was to do a similar kind of thing with one of the harmonics way up in the series, now you're still going to hear the underlying tone get played more or less identically, but you're going to get some little kind of trebly pops. If you look in the amplitude graph underneath, these green lines represent the volume of each of the waves as we progress through time. So you can see the wavetable entry that I edited, entry number 21, absolutely being spammed. I'm going to do some really simple maths to demonstrate what's going on here. I'm just going to play my note again and have a look at it in the tuner. So the fundamental frequency of the tone is 130 Hertz, and we were messing with the 21st harmonic. 130 times 21, 2730. Pretty much exactly, well, actually exactly, because this is maths. This is how sound is constructed. That's why you're seeing that spike in insight at exactly that frequency. So all of these wavetable entries represent absolute frequencies. And then what you're seeing in the harmonic map is the volume being changed over time. Now, manually creating a wavetable is something akin to, I don't know, stabbing yourself in the eye. Why would anybody do it? But the fact that you can approximate samples and turn them into waves in the next 30 years became one of the primary new inventions. The wavetable synthesis has moved on in leaps and bounds, but what you're seeing here is its absolute genesis. This is why this synthesizer costs the best part of a family home. You could either have a house or a Fairlight CMI, but not both. because in 1982 this was unbelievable technology. You know, I think it deserves respect for the point in time when this stuff was going on. Absolutely unbelievable. Of course, we take this for granted these days, but we kind of shouldn't. Now, all these different points on each one of these lines effectively represents a sample. This is what our sampling rate ultimately boils down to. In the segments view, this number here says 128. That's how many samples are contained in a segment. A segment is a bit of a nebulous concept. It's basically a moment in time, an amount of time. And so the greater the number of samples we have in a segment, effectively the greater our sampling rate is. If we really drill in as far as we possibly can, I've still got very fine granularity over the amplitudes that I can create in this map, but all of those are taking place in a tiny fraction of time. If I now zoom back out again, you know, they look vertical when we're zoomed out to the maximum extent. So if you want to edit these waves, just make sure you zoomed in by an amount that's going to be appropriate to time. Now, the reason I'm being very vague in how long these things take is because it depends entirely on the pitch of the note that you play. If I play a C2, the entire note is going to play back twice as fast as if I play a C1, because it's all pitch based. So we need to be very careful with making definitive statements about how long a thing takes to occur. Zoom back out again. The normalized, there's a little checkbox here. It's kind of difficult to see, but there's a little there we go, there's the box turned on. It basically increases the volume of each one of these 32 harmonic functions to make them as loud as possible. Now this will result in a kind of a shifting of the volume perspective, because ordinarily your fundamentals are much louder than higher harmonics, but by normalizing the entire wave it's going to sound different, and it's also going to get louder. I'll turn my loudness meter back on and just press a note of a true peak of -17.7, turn normalization off, and that will get quieter. There we go, -18.7. So we've lost 1 decibel of volume by denormalizing the sample. We're not playing all of those 32 slots as loud as we can. It doesn't mean play the sample as loud as you possibly can. It's nothing to do with the overall volume. It's all of the individual little buckets that go to make up this sound. Now, as if that's not head-bending enough, each one of these wavetables doesn't necessarily have to be constructed from sine waves. If we go into the wavetable voice and switch to square, now if we have a look at function number 1, there's a square wave at twice the frequency, and so on and so on. So we've still got exactly the same amplitude map, but now we're using a fundamentally different wave underneath in order to construct our sound. And this is really complex because a square wave itself is a combination of multiple different types of harmonics. A square wave is made of odd order harmonics from the harmonic series of nature, and yet we've got that being combined with this concept of the wavetable synthesis to create some kind of weird hybrid module. So we're going to have basically the same kind of sample playback, but now in the context of a square wave. So we've still got that trebly pop thing because we introduced all of those crazy harmonics. We've still got the tremoloing fundamental, but now it's square waves that's being used to make the sound. A metalizer creates something akin to a triangle wave, but it's got some complex harmonics as well. And so we get that softness of the triangle wave with the extra little bit of distortion. I don't propose to go through all the different wavetable voices, but as long as you understand the concept, that's the important thing. Once we've built one of these harmonic wave functions, we can copy it, move to a different slot, paste it in. So now functions 14 and 15 have identical amplitude curves. So you could build up templates of amplitude curves and then copy them and paste them somewhere else. And obviously, the more you focus on a particular amplitude at a particular moment in time, if you're combining all of the harmonics to do it, then that thing is going to get fundamentally louder. reset the entire wavetable, throw the entire thing away, and now we're left with silence. I'm pressing keys on the keyboard, but we're not hearing any sound. If I head back to slot number 1, and just switch back to sine wave mode, I increase this first wave. Now you're going to hear a sine wave. Now this is interesting. Have a look at Insight. You see all this dancing stuff down here? That's telling you that it's not a pure sine wave. The Fairlight CMI isn't a perfect sampler in the same way that something like Hallion would be. If I created a sine wave in Hallion, you would get exactly one wave. It would be at exactly the fundamental. That's it. That's the true concept of a sine wave. But what we've got here is something that's more organic. It's being basically filtered by the synthesizer's filtering engine, and it's stuff like this filter value over here. You know, this stuff matters. This is having a colouring effect on the sound. As I increase this value, you can see all of those extra harmonics being introduced. So be careful not to make too many assumptions about the purity or perfection of the sound that's being made here. But nevertheless, you know, it's a sine wave. If I add the third harmonic in as well, we're going to get something that's a little bit closer to a square wave. And now we're starting to basically hand build our own square wave. You get the idea, but you basically have to repeat all of the odd harmonics of the entire series to generate a perfect sine wave, also at exactly the right volumes. But nevertheless, we're getting there, and you can see it's starting to make something that's reasonably resembling a square wave. Now, if you want to do that kind of thing, don't do it in a wavetable, do it in the Spectral synthesizer, because that's what this is. This is a pure additive synthesizer. I'll just press a note on the keyboard. That really harsh sound that's represented by this shape is generated by these 32 harmonics. So this is much closer to the true concept of an additive synthesizer. If I turn spread down to 0, we're now generating, as close as this synthesizer possibly can, a pure sine wave. And again, you can see all this extra noise is the synthesizer's colour being introduced, but it's a pretty good representation of a sine wave. If I increase spread, we start to introduce more harmonics. If I increase centre, we're going to basically move away from the fundamental and choose a different harmonic around which to have our loudest volume. And as you can hear, when you go up through the harmonic series, you very, very quickly get into extremely high territory. 32 harmonics is a lot. Most of what you hear is comprised in those first 32 harmonics. Bias determines how evenly the volumes are distributed. So that's weighting them far more after the fundamental. And that's inverting them. Now can you hear, that's a very unnatural sound. Nature doesn't do stuff like this, where the quietest amplitude is the lowest one and the loudest amplitude is the highest frequency. That kind of thing basically doesn't happen in nature, but it can happen in synthesis. Double click the bias, reset us back to 0. And we've got an arbitrary fundamental boost as well, which literally just increases the first harmonic because that's the most important. But just to completely mess with our heads, and this is why it's called a spectral synth rather than an additive synth, you can actually change the wavetable voice in this synthesizer as well. So if I switch to square wave mode again, now all of these harmonics represent square waves rather than sine waves, and it's no longer true additive synthesis. And you get a really distorted, harsh voice because that's what square waves do. Square waves are clipped, basically. Right, that's been a lot to absorb. I'll stop there. Go and get yourself a cup of tea. I'll see you for the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Please hit the like button if you did. Thanks very much for watching.